Hi everyone. This is me, dressed like a sheep, reading a poem in front of the entire school in primary school. At the time I was in pre-kindergarten, and the goal of pre-kindergarten is pretty straightforward. You play with your classmates, you learn social skills, and you don't worry about any other things like hard skills like reading, writing, math. And for some reason, and don't ask me why, I really wanted to read. So I went to my teachers and I asked them, can we learn how to read alongside playtime? To which they gave me a very gentle but disappointing, you're not quite ready for that yet. And somehow I realized that I have some inherent aversion to being told what I can and cannot do. So that same afternoon, I went home. I stormed into the room of my older brother and I demanded he teach me how to read. So he did, obviously. And a couple of days later, I could. And that very same month, I was sitting there in front of the entire school, a bit obnoxious maybe, but reading this poem out loud. And I hope that by the end of this talk, you will realize why this memory is at the core of the lessons I want to share with you today. Before we get started, a quick disclaimer. I am not here to teach you anything. I'm not here to give you yet another life-changing talk on leadership, because the truth is, I don't have all the answers, and I don't think anyone does, but I'm sure we can deal with it just fine. So, what am I doing here today? I am sharing things I've learned throughout my story, from joining 𝘴𝘺 as a support employee, to growing to become the head of PR, to starting my own business, selling my own business, and rejoining 𝘴𝘺 as the chief of staff to its founder and CEO, 𝘮𝐵 Niknam. And 𝘴𝘺, for those who don't know, we're the second largest neobank in Europe, and we're very well on our way to become the first global neobank. And when we set out to truly change the financial sector, we set out to build the first user-centric... Hi, you're very up close. We set out to build the first user-centric bank, and we were the first in 35 years to get a full European banking license. So it's been a great adventure, as you can imagine. I learned a lot about building a business, but most importantly, I learned a lot about myself. And I'm sharing a couple of those lessons with you today. Maybe they'll inspire you, maybe they'll bore you. We'll find out. So, as a leader, or when you're in charge of a team, you need to build authority. Basically, your ability to inspire and influence others. And when I was younger, I always thought I had to be super strict and tough to do so. I couldn't be more wrong, because the more I tried to enforce my authority through resistance and force, the more obstacles I encountered and the least successful I was. I soon realized that the way I build authority is through showing skills and expertise, rather than shouting aloud. And there's, for some reason, a nice green color that shouldn't be there. And I'll give you an example. It was one of my first feats when I rejoined 𝘴𝘺 as chief of staff. I wasn't quite sure about my role at the time, and people in the company neither. And I remember to this day, it was just after we have been in a zero interest rate environment for years, that the European Central Bank decided to raise the interest rates for the first time. And soon after, I got a message from 𝘮𝐵, the CEO of 𝘴𝘺, what should we do? And in my role as chief of staff, I need to then determine the strategy, get the calculations right, make sure that that the processes are there so we can run it within the company. So for me, it was actually a no-brainer. If we're a user-centric company, we're going to pass on that benefit to our users. And so we did. So we've been offering market high interest rates for nearly a year now, and the results speak for itself. We quadrupled our deposit sheet in under a year, And we actually pushed for a countrywide interest rate raise. We forced traditional banks to follow faster than they usually would. And most importantly, I established my role within the company. And for those who wonder, we're still offering great savings rates, so try out after this talk. Which brings me to the next point. I see my brain as a business, and I run it accordingly. My prefrontal cortex is where the magic happens. It's basically the control center of the brain in charge of executive functions like planning, decision-making, and most importantly, self-control. Because I believe to be successful in anything really in life, you don't need motivation, you just need discipline. Discipline, like any other cognitive and behavioral skill, is something that is like a muscle that you can just strengthen over time. The same way you go to the gym to increase the endurance and physical strength of your muscles, the same way you can strengthen your discipline by simply sticking to routines and habits and practicing self-control. And you find that over time, discipline is a second nature, as it is to me now and it has been for quite a long time. I remember when I was in high school, I practiced synchronized swimming at quite a high level, which meant training before school, which actually meant being in the cold pool at 5:45 in the morning. Now that I think back of it, I'm like, what the hell was I doing? Going to school and training after. And now to this very date, I get up almost every day at 6 to train before work, and I stick to very tight routines, especially now that I travel a lot, making sure that travel doesn't become an excuse to settle for anything less. And the best part about discipline is that it gives you a sense of self-control, and it basically makes me feel like I can do anything I set my mind to. And working alongside Ali, basically a coder who decided to build a bank and bootstrap it for nearly 10 years, I'm reminded of that every single day. His high level of discipline shows me that there's indeed no secret sauce. You just need to put in the work. And there's more things I believe. I was thinking about what it was, but I remember. I believe that traditional career paths are overrated. It's very easy nowadays to think that being successful is being successful in the eyes of others. When I had to pick a study in university, I decided to study Spanish, just because I liked it. And many people asked me at the time, how are you going to build a career studying Spanish? And I knew I would be just fine. And I also knew that what they maybe didn't realize is that it was about way more than learning vocabulary and conjugating verbs. Learning Spanish to me was about getting new perspectives, becoming resourceful. For me, success is not necessarily about what others may think. To me, it's about working on projects or setting myself up, putting myself in environments that set me up for success. And one of those environments, to me, I know, a surprise, is Bunk. Because at Bunk, we strive to build the best product, but only with the best people. Bunk is a place where it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. If you have talent and drive, you can make it big. And I think my story, I joined as a support employee, and now a couple of years later, I'm working on all these cool things, is a testament that indeed anything is possible if you just are in an environment that lets you be successful. And that's not the same for everyone. I'm not saying you should all join Bunk, but by all means, join Bunk if you want. But choose an environment that lets you be successful. And as any CEO has a plan B for when shit hits the fan, so does your brain. Our body knows a coping mechanism, which is called the fight, flight, freeze state. And it basically kicks in when we find ourselves in a situation that we perceive as dangerous. And I always hated confrontation years ago. Confrontation in any way, shape, or form would trigger a fearful reaction in me. So I wanted to deal with that. So what did I decide to do, as any logical human being would? I signed up for a kickboxing fight. I thought, if I don't like confrontation, I'm going to put myself in, well, the biggest confrontation imaginable. And I don't know how many people know anything about martial arts here, but before a fight starts, the referee tells you to come into the center of the ring and says, fight. And that is probably a very obvious cue to signal a situation of danger, and not one that many will find themselves in ever in their lives. But yet we face similar situations every single day. You're in an argument with your partner or a friend who suddenly explodes on you. You see a car heading your way, you immediately slam your brake. You miss an important deadline for a very important project, or you're about to step on stage. When we see a situation as dangerous, our bodies start releasing all kinds of hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, and you will notice that your heart rate goes through the roof, you start to tremble, sweat. But most importantly, your body will choose one of the following responses. Fight, you face the danger heads on. Flight, you run away from the danger. Freeze, you do nothing, you are unable to move and act. Or fawn, it's not the most known one. You immediately act to try to please, to avoid any further conflict. My go-to is freeze. And the same I had in my fight, the first round. I don't even remember what I did. I probably did nothing. But I noticed that through the second and the third round, I quite literally fought my way through, and it became easier and easier over time. And fear, just like discipline, will get easier over time the more you expose yourself to situations that trigger this fearful reaction inside of you. I noticed that myself too. I've been putting myself out there quite a lot lately, and I notice that things come way easier. I'm way less nervous, and I feel like I can face anything. Of course, I sometimes still get butterflies in my stomach, but then I just think, that's my body preparing me for the challenge ahead. How cool is that? Which brings me to lesson number 5. I decided to study a language in university simply because I liked it. And I liked it so much that when I started working at Bank, I did a study next to it to become a legal interpreter in court. And during that time, I really realized that language is a tool if you know how to use it. At the time, we really had to translate at fast speed, and we had no time to literally translate words. And I noticed that we weren't translating words, we were translating the essence, the tone, the intent. And I think there's quite a few people here that speak multiple languages, I've heard. As you know, certain things are just not translatable. In Italian, you have il dolce far niente, which means the sweet doing nothing, if you were to literally translate it. But it actually means being able to see the pleasure in little things in life, sitting outside in the sun. And I took my love for languages a bit far. I studied Spanish, I'm currently learning Italian. I did French. And even though all these languages are different, they all showed me that it was never about the words, it was always about the essence. And language is a tool in many different ways. I'll just give you a couple because we don't have time. Does that mean 5 minutes? Okay, I was very scared it was the end because that one scares me. Okay, okay. So sometimes it's not about what's being said, it's about what's not being said. Being able to read that your teammate might not be expressing the true feelings and need a bit more attention. Or the ability to apply verbal judo instead of verbal karate. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I would love to because it's great. But there's basically a a guy, George Thompson. He's an ex-police officer who invented verbal judo. It's a book, go get it, watch it on YouTube. He did an entire lecture on it. It's basically using language to de-escalate conflicts. So instead of saying, you're wrong, which is verbal karate, very aggressive, you will say, I see your point, but have you considered this perspective? And once you start applying this, you will see that you will get to your goals way easier. Cultural empathy, because it's not just about the words, it's not about the silence, it's also about understanding the approach to language certain cultures have. So my boyfriend is Italian, hence why I'm learning Italian at the moment. And this became very apparent to me when we decided to plan our Christmas holiday with his family. We were going to have a dinner where we were going to plan this Christmas holiday. I'm very Dutch, I guess. I thought I wasn't, but I guess I am. So I showed up at this dinner. I nearly brought my notebook. I was like, we're going to plan this holiday. I'm going to walk out of there. I'll have this entire holiday planned. Oh, no, I was wrong. I realized that they really enjoyed the journey of planning and talking about it and all the things we could do, but never actually getting to the, you Italian? No. Same, okay. Yeah, and I was there like, okay, you like this, so we're doing this? No, we're not? Okay, and until I realized, okay, it was never about getting to a plan. So language, long story short, is a very important tool if you know how to use it, especially if you run teams, right? You want them to run into the same direction. You want them to think of the same thing when you set the direction, and you don't want things to get lost in translation. And that basically brings me to my last point. Over the last years, I've learned a lot of things, but I mainly learned things about myself. And what surprises me every day, I do quite some job interviews for high-level executives, is that not everybody does. During interviews, at the end of the interview, I genuinely ask the following question. I ask, based on everything you've heard and you know, give me one reason why you're not the right person for this job. And people struggle. They do. And I believe that being a leader is really about understanding this, understanding your strengths, understanding your weaknesses, because otherwise you're basically like a product with no roadmap or a business with no plan. You're very unlikely to succeed. It's me, the sheep, again. So obviously when I was 4, I didn't know how my brain worked. But looking back at it now, I had a lot of inherent traits that I now consider some of my strengths. When I decided to learn how to read no matter what, I chose discipline. If you don't teach me how to read, I'll do it myself after school. I let my work speak for itself. Shortly after, they let me skip a class. And I decided to do something that scared me a lot. I was going to sit in front of the entire school, read a poem. I was ambitious, ready to put in the work and do anything that was needed to get to my goal. So I've learned a lot about myself, and I invite you all to do the same. Thank you.
That was very powerful. Thank you. I'm speechless for once. See?
Oh, well, then we stop now. Okay.
Yeah, no, one question. Yes, we have a question here. I think.
Hi.
I have a question about your question that you asked at the end of the interview.
Yeah.
What were some of the memorable answers you've got, and what is a good answer for you? What's a memorable and what's a good one? It could be the same example.
Well, there's not necessarily one answer that's memorable for me, but the candidates that are memorable to me are the people that they don't give me the chance to ask that question, because they start with it like one of the first answers they give to any question. They start by, oh, let me tell you, there was this one person, I asked something, I don't even remember what I asked, but he said, first, let me tell you what I suck at. And I was like, yes, You I like. And what's the right answer? There's no right or wrong answer to this question. But if you can't give me one reason to why you would not be a good fit, that shows very little introspection. And I'm generally not that impressed then.
Thank you. Anyone else? Question? Come on, be brave. No? Yes? Oh, God,
Oh,
yeah.
at the
Now
same
3
time,
or 4
huh?
at the same time, right? Okay, Inge, you were here closest.
I have a really fast question.
Okay.
Are you in Sweden?
If I,
Bank?
Oh,
Are you
yes.
in Sweden?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Because
yes,
I've never
yes.
heard of you.
But we haven't been focused on it. We are operating because of a European banking license, so that passports is into Sweden, but we're not fully focused on Sweden yet.
No, yes, you can hear.
Okay. Some people say not everybody can be successful. Not everybody.
Yeah.
Even if you're healthy, but because of the society. Not
Yeah.
everybody. That's what the question was asked. Well, was said to me. Asked me, not asked.
Told me.
People told me.
Yeah.
No, not everybody is able to have success in their life. Not
Yeah.
everybody.
And it's a question or a statement?
So you're asking if she agrees
If
that
I
not
agree with that?
everyone can be successful in life?
No, I do think that there's people with more opportunities laid in front of them than others. I also think it depends on how you define successful.
True.
I've been trying to write a book. It's probably going to be shit, but I noticed that just writing it made me so happy and at peace. But yes, there's of course a lot of, I mean, some people have more opportunities that get handed to them in life than others. No, 100%.
Thank you.
No.
There was one more in this area.
So it links in with what do you think the setbacks, you know, and
Yeah.
when people tell you, oh, you can't do that. One of the things you said, like, oh, you don't need motivation, you need discipline.
Yeah.
And linking in with that resilience and actually dealing with stuff that's not working your way. How big of the percentage is that makes success?
A lot. I think it's part of discipline. Throughout building Bank, we've had many setbacks. But I think the difference is in how we approach the banks. I work with because we're a tech company, right? So I work with a lot of coders, and they're very used to writing code and getting immediate feedback. There's an immediate feedback loop. So within Bank, failure is not necessarily seen as failure; it's seen as information to keep on improving. But yeah, it's been a marathon, not a sprint, 100%. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Do we have time for one last one? Yes? Anyone have a last burning question for Bianca?
Or less burning.
Oh. Gosh. I shall try and walk elegantly and fast without losing my shoes.
You're doing a great job. Thank you for your lessons. I was wondering, you are a woman, a young woman. Thank you for sharing your journey and the way how did you act about it. But can you zoom a little bit in what it has been to be a woman in a man's? What is your relationship with the men's? And do you think there is a difference, or do you think it was not in your case? Did it help you? Did it not help you? So I was just wondering. Did you?
I mean, I've experienced. Is that me? Oh no.
No.
Okay. Of course, I've experienced that. That was also one of the reasons I said that I always thought my authority was built through being very strict and tough, like a man or whatever. But actually, and not to make this a whole promotion about Bank, but it is true. I always forget that I'm a woman within Bank.
Wow.
And that's what I really enjoy. Yeah. And then it's not. And then I have a chat with a partner or whatever, someone outside of Bank, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was a woman. Forgot I know I have to go get coffee. I guess, yeah, you know. So yeah, of course, it's been something in my life, but luckily within Bank, it is not the case.
Round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.